Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. So today I'm going to try my best to explain the gear system as depicted by these pictures that WB Games Montreal has shared. First of all, I'm not going to try to do much guesswork because Patrick Redding himself already talked about this in an IGN interview. So we're going to look at what he said and we're going to try to juxtapose it with what we have here. Now, if you look at all the pictures of all the different characters, they've showcased 6 different items for each character. In the case of Nightwing, you see that he's got his mask, his eskrima sticks, vest, knee pads, shoes, and gauntlets. If you go to another knight, say Red Hood, now in his case he's got 5, but they didn't highlight his weapon in this list. I'm thinking it might be his weapon that will be the 6th item, or maybe another piece of gear item. So his knee pads, shoes, holsters, hoodie, and his cowl. These are supposedly, according to Patrick Redding, individual pieces that will have armor abilities. So check this out. In this interview, Patrick Redding was asked, and this interview was published, let's go back and look at the date. It was published on August 26th, so as early as when the game was revealed. Somebody asked and said, how different can the knights become? Will my Red Hood be different from somebody else's Red Hood? And Patrick Redding replied and said, between the ability tree for Red Hood, which is very unique, and his gear spec and the way you can modify and upgrade both his ranged weapons, his melee weapons, and his suit, absolutely. In fact, that range between character builds remains actually quite robust throughout the entire game. So there's going to be a gear specking mechanism for all the individual characters. His cowl is going to come in different cowls with different abilities. This is what makes an RPG game. His hoodie, you'll be able to gain different hoodies that will have different abilities that will help you either in combat, either in stealth, either in all kinds of different activities and actions. And I think this is the gear system that he's actually referring to. Now, another thing too is, this is not going to negate your big old character skill tree that's going to be there. In fact, if you keep looking at his interview, it also talks about skins, but the question he goes ahead to answer based on gear. So the interviewer asked him, how do character skins work? Are they made up of individual pieces of armor or full outfits? And then he said, and then they replied, they're a mix of all that. So the guy says, so just to be clear, when we talk about gear, we're talking about melee weapon, your range weapon, and your suit, which has certain armor characteristics. It's very, very straightforward and plain. So when you see a picture like this with Robin, you know his mask is going to give him some ability, his shoulder pads will give him some ability, his windbreaker, his gauntlets, and so as you as a player are progressing with him, you're getting better of these pieces to combine them together in order for you to make the character stronger. Now let me show you this kind of ability system based on gear in one of the most complex systems that exist in gaming right now. This is Tom Clancy's The Division 2. This is a game that I've played for about 4 years, and they use almost the exact same methodology, but this is the deepest that you can have in any video game. Destiny, Warframe, they do not come close to the depth of how a gear system can look based on using the outfit pieces of, say, your character. In the case of The Division, you have a mask, you have a backpack, you have a chest piece, you have gloves, you have a holster, and you have knee pads. And this is kind of generic for every single character, but each individual item is very different because there are different ranges from regular high-end versions of the pieces to exotic level of pieces. So I think in Gotham Knights we're gonna have those variations from common to epic to high-end to legendary or to exotic, and they're gonna have special abilities tied to them. If you look on the right side, every single one has got specific attributes to them, and even in some cases talents or talents that are tied to the brand that it is. I don't want to jump too deep in here, but if I were to guess, I would say that you would have access as any of these knights to different variations from different sources. They could choose whichever direction they want to go with these. They could go the direction of, say, maybe Win Enterprises Windbreaker. Maybe, you get this Windbreaker and it's version 3.77 or something, and it can do these specific abilities, and it will have specific, access to abilities that you can pair up with other, pieces in order to make Robin super, fortified. You can build a full DPS or glass cannon build, or you can build a build where he's a tank and he can take a bunch of damage. And I think this is what they're gunning for. Now, this doesn't mean that your regular good old system like they had here in Arkham Origins is going to go away. In fact, I think they're going to try to combine something of what I've just shown you with the basic upgrades that you get with your character. So each night will most likely have something like this. This is a game made by Warner Brothers Games Montreal, by the way. So I decided to use Arkham Origins so that we could see a better reference of this, if you get what I mean. So you look at the way this skill tree is, where you're going to be getting XP as you're doing activities, progressing. You're also going to be leveling these things up, and it's not impossible for these attributes to actually be in some kind of a synergy or harmony with your character. So your goal as the player is going to actually be to level up this ability tree, which Patrick Redding actually does refer to in this article. He does mention an ability upgrade that you can use. And so it's basically based on this question when they ask, what do enemy levels actually mean? He talks about a powerful player progression. He talks about how you're going to basically get yourself to the point where you're starting to, get better and get stronger with your ability tree. And I think that's what they're gunning for. Now, let me go back and show you another ability tree, which you can also synergize with the complex gear system. And here in this same game, remember I told you this game is a very complex game. You also have ability trees based on specialization weapons. Now, this is just a mask to get you into more abilities that you can actually harness with your character. And these little stats, you will upgrade them using specific points and then make your character stronger. Each one of them has got numeric, or in some cases, different kind of environmental buffs that your player gets. So I think this is the approach that Warner Brothers Games Montreal is using. Now, it may not be specific. It will definitely not be like The Division. I mean, if it is, man, I'll be like a kid in a candy store, but I don't think it'll be as in-depth or complex. I think we might see something closer to Assassin's Creed. And I was going to fire up Assassin's Creed for, to showcase, but I didn't think Assassin's Creed had too much right now to offer. Now, the one Assassin's Creed game that I will say has a lot of that is Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where there's a huge skill tree and also gear pieces that have their own unique abilities. So this is what I think the gear pieces and the gear game is going to be. These pictures that they've shown us, I think many in the community have misinterpreted them as just fan art or cosmetics. They're not just cosmetics. In fact, he mentioned something about the cosmetics being specific and different. They talk about them here pretty much, and there he said when we're talking about gear, we're talking about your melee weapon. Then he says now there's your suit style. That's the sort of skinning, in quote, the suit, because we didn't want to turn into just random crazy quilt. What we've done is that we've got distinct suit looks, and then within that there's necessary variation that the player can tap into. That way you get a chance to tweak it and make it exactly the way you like it. So this is based on the cosmetic side. Again, let me show you what that cosmetic thing can look like. So I have a vest here that is from the brand category called Empress International. This is a brand set that gives skill health, skill damage, and all that stuff. Now I can make this Empress International look like another item from Negotiator's Dilemma. All I got to do is go and basically use what we call a transmog. A transmog is based on the appearance of the item, and you can basically make it look like a Negotiator's Dilemma chess piece, or I can make it look like another chess piece from another brand and just change its cosmetic outlook, but it will still have the inherent characteristics of Empress International while it looks like something else. So I think this might be a system that they use to execute the cosmetics. Who knows? It might be different, but I just wanted to use this game because I felt like this game answered some of those questions in a more in-depth way. I could sit here on and just dive deeper into it, but I want to stop very carefully here because everything I've described so far will most likely be in a different form. But I can say with a lot more certainty, based on what the creative director has said here and based on what the art team has released, I see that we have some sort of a synergy between your player's gear, your player's abilities, and your player's power as your player, or your knight, let's just call him your knight, continues to go on further down the road. And again, I just gave you an example with two other Ubisoft games. For those of you who may say these are different games, Please note that Patrick Redding, the creative director of Gotham Knights, came from Ubisoft Montreal, okay? He's an Ubisoft guy. So I think he may be taking some of the best practices or using them in his game. So it's not like I'm trying to make any false comparisons, but it's very hard for someone who's worked in a company that is very good at shipping games to not take some nuggets from there and bring to this franchise. Not saying he's definitely going to do it, but I think there's a higher likelihood from what I'm seeing. I'll stop here. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Do you think this is the Gear game, or do you think it isn't? Talk to you all in another video. Thank you so much for watching. Peace out.